What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. This has been a very long week, for me at least. Um, Monday was my 13th wedding anniversary, which was awesome, but I lost my wedding ring. That kind of sucked. Can't find it anywhere. I think I accidentally threw it out. I know. Garbage day was Tuesday, and I didn't find out until Tuesday afternoon, so that sucked. Also, we closed on our house, our old house. We moved into this home a couple months ago, but we've kept our old house because we were selling it, and we finally closed. And it's actually closing today, and that's kind of bittersweet. It's the house that my wife and I bought a year after we got married, and we raised our kids there, and it's just a bittersweet thing. So it's been this kind of week of this emotion. On top of that, I also had to make probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make in this business this week. And that's what really got me thinking about this vlog for this week, and about how running a business can really suck sometimes. And it's not easy. It's not always easy. There's a lot of great and wondrous things about it, and there's a lot of things that are really hard. And I kind of liken it to being a parent. When you want to have a child and you think about you kind of have this idealistic thing and thought in your mind about having a child, and it's going to be great, and they're going to grow up, and it's just going to be this wonderful continuation of life and all these things. And then you have your child, and it's this beautiful, magical moment. But then that's also mixed with these scary emotions, and this child didn't come with a manual. And in fact, my wife's brother just had their first child this week, and to hold a newborn again was really neat. And I could see the sort of trepidation with them and trying to figure this out. And it was only hours from birth, and they were looking at this baby like, wow, is this normal? Blah, blah. It's all the thoughts that go through your head when you have your own child. And as they get older, you have to make decisions, and sometimes you have to do what's right for your child, even though they don't think it's right for them, having the decisions about certain things, and they're yelling at you and all those other things as they get older. But you do that because you want the best for your kid, and that's how I feel about business. You start out with a business idea. That's how all businesses start. It's this idea, like, what if I could sell these horror shirts? What if I could do this? But the reality of it, once you start putting it into motion, is that it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of effort, and there are things about it that most people aren't prepared for. They don't, when I started this company, I didn't think about what it was going to be like to have employees, or to, rent out an office space, or to deal with legal and all these other complexities that came along with it as we grew. And I personally love that aspect of business, but there's also days that are extremely difficult, and you have to make difficult decisions. And I've had those throughout this business, and I've had to make some calls that are hard, and as a business owner, the buck stops with you. It doesn't matter how many people you have part of the business, doesn't matter who you're relying on, doesn't matter what's going on. You are the responsible person in the business. Everything begins and ends with you. And that doesn't come lightly. That's not always easy. And the pressure and the burden is all on your shoulders. And I accept that. I think in the early days, there was a little bit of resistance, because I was like, hey, I just want to make some cool horror shirts, But as I grew, as I got older, as I matured, as the business grew and evolved, you just accept your role. And I personally like dealing with those things, but it's not easy. I like being the person to handle those things, but at the same time, it's just not easy. So I realize that when you're faced with a decision, there's a lot of things you can do, and the mind messes with you, and it tries to get you to say, well, what if you just do this instead, or what if you not face this problem but you work around it. And I realized that a lot of the decisions I've made, especially this one this week, sometimes there's just big boulder in the middle of a room, and you walk into a room, and you need to get to the other side, but there's this big boulder and you can't get around it. You literally cannot go to the sides of it, and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying, and the only way to do it is to go straight through. And I know it's a weird analogy, but you know in your gut when it's the right thing to do. You know in your gut when you have to make a decision. And I think so many times people ignore their gut, and they decide not to bring up the tough situation with another person or their own child, like being a parent, or just in general, whatever the situation is. And I've realized after going through this a lot with my own kids, with my own business, that you need to trust your gut. And a lot of times the hardest thing to do is the thing that you need to do. And if that's any way I can impart that onto somebody, just listen to your gut. And sometimes the only way is the hardest way. And when you make those decisions and you go through with it finally, there's relief, and it's not happiness. There's still the pieces left over, but there's relief. In fact, I'll share a quick story here. It's kind of a weird story because I'm thinking back, it's long in the past, but it is relevant here, and I think it's what kind of set me on this path. But when my wife and I were dating, I used to smoke cigarettes, and I don't anymore, but I used to smoke, and it was a constant thing, but I wasn't like a pack a day guy. I mean, I was young. I was like 19 or 20 or something. And she found out about it, and she was not happy about it at all. And I told her I would quit. And I did for like a week. And I kept smoking, and I would do it without her knowing it. And I was essentially lying to her. And I ended up, I was in college at the time, and I flew to Germany to study there for a few months. And in fact, I was running away, really, because all these things were coming down on me. I knew I was lying to her about that. I knew that I was going to be graduating in a year, and we would be getting married and having this life together, and that's what I wanted, but I was also scared because I was young, and I didn't know what I was doing with myself. And it was just, the things that are wrapped up in a 20, 21-year-old or whatever person's mind. And I remember waking up one day in Germany, and I was writing in a journal, which I hadn't done much at that point, and I kept writing out all these weird things, like just of where my mind was at, because I knew there was something there. There was just something, there was that rock in the room. And I remember writing it down. I have to admit to Maria that I'm still smoking. And it sounds silly because it sounds like some stupid thing, but to me at the time, in a relationship and everything, it was a big trust thing, and I knew I was lying. I knew I was lying, flat out. And I had to wait like 3 days because she was away for a friend's wedding, and I was the only person that could call her. She couldn't call me. I was in this old dorm, and we had to go into the basement, and there was one phone, and you had to call like 13 numbers just to get out of the country. It was crazy. And I remember calling her that Monday, and I just blurted it out, and I was crying, and I mean, just ugly crying, snot everywhere. It was a horrible thing. But it was something I needed to do. I knew that I had to face that one thing for us to continue on, because it wasn't going to be founded on any trust. Because if I was going to lie about that, what else could happen, And I admitted it. We moved on. Of course, she was angry, and there was a lot of upset times and things. But I quit right from that moment on. I didn't smoke, aside from cigars, which I like, but cigarettes I didn't smoke after that. And we built up that trust again. Of course, we're married now and that type of thing. But I know that moment in my life really I revisit that a lot, because at the time, for me, it was a growth moment, and I really became more self-aware when things are just eating away at me. And I think that really helped me now when things come up and I see a situation, and my immediate gut reaction is, you need to do that. But then I justify and I rationalize all these other things I can do for a few minutes, and then I'm like, no, the gut was the way to go. So follow your gut, make the hard decisions. If you want to run a business, know that there's going to be hard times. But as business owners, as parents, or just anybody in everyday life, you have to go through these things, and it'll only make you stronger. So follow your gut, follow your intuition, and have a good day.